Welcome to the big warehouse side of my studio, where we're going to take a moment and just talk about all the equipment. I don't want this to be too daunting. Again, I want to convey to you that the equipment really is not the most important part. You're going to grow into the equipment. You can literally start with a few iPhones and some pretty affordable microphone options, but the content is really king. But for those of you who do want to know about the equipment, you do need to know a little bit, obviously. We're going to get into that right now, and you're also going to see us film a podcast in this space. So let's get straight into it. First, for cameras. Like I said, you can record with iPhones or just really any camera that's going to allow you to do video. The main thing with the cameras is setting your frame rates and shutter speeds, although it's not absolutely necessary. It is certainly helpful and makes your video look a little more professional. And I would suggest filming your frame rate at either 24 or 30 frames per second. In any industry camera, mirrorless camera, the camera I'm using to film this, which is the Canon EOS R, very affordable camera, you can go into those settings and change your frame rate. And then you want your shutter speed to be double of that. So if it's 24, your shutter speed needs to be 1/48. If it's 30, 1/60. Again, you can go to my YouTube channel if any of that sounds confusing or you don't know how to do all that good stuff. That's just another part of this process that you're probably going to want to learn to get the most out of your podcast. In terms of cameras, what I personally use is kind of a combination of the cameras that my production company has available. We're filming on the EOS R, which is Canon's very first mirrorless camera actually, and it has stood the test of time. I think you can pick these up for under $1,000 now, and they work great. I have nicer cameras, but I just choose to film with this camera because it works. I can remotely view myself here and make sure I'm recording. But we use that camera on a lot of our podcasts. In fact, that is the camera that is on Savannah most of the time in the Brood Awakening podcast. So if you want examples of the video quality, go take a look at that. I'll put some images on the screen as well. Here we have the Canon C100, the original. Guys, this camera is so cheap. Like, I got this one for, I think, $500, and it is a full-on cinema camera. I have YouTube videos on my YouTube specifically about this camera and how great I believe it is, and I know it to be. This is the camera, and just use the Brood Awakening as an example to continue to do that. This is the camera that is on John every episode. And it does a really, really good job. It's got all the features that you would want. You can change those frame rates and shutter speeds like we talked about. It also has autofocus, so I can pick my subject and it will stay focused. This camera has autofocus, this camera has autofocus. If you're using something like an iPhone or a webcam, you don't really have to worry about that because it uses, it either uses autofocus or it has such a depth of field that everything's gonna be in focus. Again, I wouldn't get too hung up on this. I'm just kind of giving you what I use and my experience is. Again, these are all set to the same settings. So, they'll be set to normally 24 frames a second with a 1/50th shutter speed. And then our white balance is set to the environment. So if you don't know about white balance, make sure you go check out my YouTube channel. I've got videos on how to set your white balance. We're not going to get into that here. But moving right along, we have support for the cameras. You're going to want that. These are pretty nice tripods because we use these for commercials and other video shoots that we do. But you can easily go to Best Buy or go on B&H or Amazon and find some affordable tripods. Now, the thing with tripods is you want to make sure that your tripod is going to support the weight of your camera. For example, this Fujifilm X-H2S, which is not our heaviest camera, by the way. We have a red Scarlet that's very heavy, like 14 pounds. This is really well suited for this tripod because of the weight. The tripod that's in front of me, which you cannot technically see, is more of a photography tripod, and it doesn't support a ton of weight. Like something under 6 pounds, it does okay, but anything over that, you're really risking the integrity of your gear at that point, and you risk it falling over and breaking. So we don't want to do that. Again, this tripod will probably support up to 12 pounds. This camera only weighs like 4 or 5 pounds, maybe less. So it's totally good. Just when you're shopping for a tripod, you don't need to spend a boatload of money for podcast purposes. You just want to make sure that you're not buying a tripod that's not going to support your camera, because we don't need to break any of our gear, right? So that's the cameras. If you have any other questions about cameras, you can leave us a comment, send us an email, that kind of thing. I didn't want to go too deep into the cameras or the lenses. Lenses are going to be, sort of up to your discretion. I like to use wider zoom lenses for podcasts because it does give me flexibility. So this is the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter. This is the Fujifilm, what is it? It's like 16 to 55. And then on that camera, what I would normally use is a Canon 16 to 35. Again, 16, the lower the number, the wider. So you're hearing 16, 18, 16. That lets me get super wide. If we're filming in a tight space, I don't have to back the camera up too much. I'm not gonna be super close on somebody's face. But if I do want a close up on one of the cameras or a bust shot or whatever, I can zoom in a little bit. So I don't use primes usually on podcasts. I tend to use zoom lenses because, one day we might be in the office of a bank, the next one we might be in the office of a realtor, and then we're in a giant showroom of a furniture company, and then we're in here, and then we're in that little office that I was just in there teaching the course in. And so just having that versatility really helps. Now, if you can get lenses with lower apertures, you can have better low light performances, but if you have a light, like we have here, shining down, it's not such a big deal. And we will get into lighting here in a second. Again, I don't want you to get too caught up on this because this is something you're gonna grow into. You really need to focus on the content side and delivering the best value to your customers or to your clients. But this is just currently a little bit of what we have at our disposal to use for my business. Now, transitioning into the most important part, which is audio. I am using right now on my lapel a little DJI clip-on mic, okay? Now, there's a lot of companies that make these little mics. I even think you can buy them at Best Buy. I bought this set at Best Buy, but it comes in just this little thing, little hub. It's got 2 mics in it, and the receiver, as you can see, but I'm using it right now, so it's actually recording. And that's where my audio is coming from. This is a really good starter option, I would say, and I actually have a client who prefers to use these because they don't like stuff in front of their face, and it makes life easier on me, actually, because I can just clip the mic on them and let them go to town and talk. But if you're just starting out, this system or something like this is probably going to cost you between $150 to $400, and you're set. Everything's there. The recording is internal, so it actually records to this. And yeah, you can get away with it, I would say. If you're an independent person making your own show, definitely a viable option. You're going to get good audio. It's going to record 32-bit float, which gives you a lot of flexibility in editing. It's not going to peak out. It's not going to sound bad. It'll sound professional. It's not going to have the thickness of one of these podcast mics, which we'll talk about, but it will get you by. And we use it for a number of things. Another good thing about having a set of these, if you're a video professional offering this whole thing as a service, is you can run out of mics. Believe it or not, I've had situations where I only had, say, 3 of these podcast mics to start, and they wanted to do 5 people, and that presented a challenge. And then I quickly remembered I had the DJI mic set, the little lapel mics. So, we put 3 people on the regular mics, and then we clip these to the other people. Now on screen, it has an inconsistent look, but at the end of the day, what's king? Content. Content is king. We're not trying to be Steven Spielberg or, your favorite cinematographer on this. We're just trying to make it presentable enough to watch and to listen to. And audio really is the most important thing. So rather than trying to get them to pass one of these mics or put it between 2 of them or do an overhead boom, which you can't see, but I've got right there, it just made more sense to whip this out and get good recording. They didn't sound completely the same, but in editing, I was able to shape them out to sound pretty good across the board. And we, special circumstance, only did that for an episode or so. But yeah, and then another thing that you can get away with, and I did for months, was these little shotgun mics, right? So a shotgun mic, video professional, you know what they are. It's just something that you would put on your camera. In fact, there's one right here on this camera. There's one on this camera, there's one in my hand, there's one above me too, because I have a boom mic in here for a shoot tomorrow. But shotgun mics, you can get away with it. The problem with them is they tend to peak out a little bit when people are laughing and things like that. And I'm not a super audio professional by any means, but I do know the importance of audio. And the challenge with these is when you're recording with these, you really do have to monitor the audio like a hawk, as opposed to something like the Rode pod mics or the Sennheisers and the Shure mics I have that you saw me recording with in the course, and a good audio processor and capture device, you can pretty much put it on autopilot. Now that takes me to capturing the audio. You know, video professionals watching this are gonna pretty much know everything I'm talking about, but if I'm gonna also be explaining this for people who just wanna jump into this with no experience, right? So you need something to capture the audio, kind of like your camera is capturing the video. It's capturing it to a memory card. Now your camera's gonna capture audio, but it's not gonna capture this audio, nor do we really care for it to. We could send the audio from this mic or this mic or this mic to the camera, and that's fine, but you're gonna get better quality if you send it to a separate device that has better preamps and that you can control the audio levels with. Which brings me to these little doohickeys. So we've got this is a Tascam DR60D Mark II. It's just an audio capturing device. This is a very popular, very well-known Zoom H6. Any of you video guys out there probably have had one of these or know about it. I have two of them, and I have the H5. So I've been using these for a very long time. And before I leave this, like the best option is going to be the Rode mics, or a podcast specific mic, I should say. Shure has their SB57 or whatever it is. I have a couple of Zooms. I have a Sennheiser. I have 3 of these mics. The Rode pod mic is what it's called. I really like these, and bang for your buck, they're $100. This is the way to go in terms of mics, in my opinion. It's one I use on my podcast, and I really like it. But going back to the audio capturing devices, so we've got the Tascam, which I used to use this. This was everything to me. I used it for capturing all the audio for my commercials, podcasts, talking head videos, testimonials, weddings. I mean, just whatever I was recording audio, didn't have to be a podcast. I was using the Tascam for probably 10 years. I've had that for 10 years. Then I moved over to the the H6 by Zoom. Very popular, well-known capture device. I'd mount this to a boom pole or to a camera and could pipe the audio in. It also takes, all these take a memory card. So just like your camera's capturing video, these are capturing audio. So they take data. They're gonna be pulling in that data, and you're gonna get that out separately whenever you're backing up all your assets, okay? And we'll get into that in post-production a little bit. But if you're gonna be offering this as a service and you wanna go big and you really wanna do it right, I would go with a RODECaster by Rode or something similar. It doesn't have to be the brand Rode. I know Behringer makes some things, Yamaha makes some things. Zoom makes one that's supposed to be pretty good. But in my experience, the RODECaster Pro 2, and who knows, when you're watching this, the 3 might be out, and you're gonna get a good deal on the 1, I get it. You can buy the original, it's gonna be good. But the RODECaster Pro 2 has just been an asset to me. The things that it can do, and I've got separate videos on my channel, YouTube channel, talking about it. I can make a course on this thing probably because it's that robust. The things that it can do in here, especially as a business owner, I've got different shows set up in it. So for example, for the bank podcast, I have a show set up. So it's got all my presets for the mics. All my clients basically have their own show set up in here. It's got 4 Pro XLR inputs. It's got 4 headphone outs, which you could always split those if you needed more. It actually plugs into a computer to work as an audio interface. It takes a memory card, obviously, has Ethernet connection. It has all these nice hard buttons to be able to raise and lower your levels, mute buttons. It's basically just a radio studio in a box. and it is super handy with a nice LCD screen. Yeah, this has just really changed my business in terms of podcasting, because used to, we would use this. It only has 4 inputs. I'm really having to ride the levels. It's good, don't get me wrong. Now, when I'm doing documentary work and I'm filming an overhead mic in an interview like I'm going to be doing in here tomorrow, this will actually be used a lot. And then the Tascam is just another brand of that. I just haven't used it in a while because I just like the Zoom's preamps a little bit better. But that is going to be, you're going to need something to capture the audio. Now, you can say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to capture it in camera. I'm going to capture it, some other way. But if you want that crisp, professional podcast sound, you're at minimum going to need just a separate audio capturing device. The other really big benefit is this has a lot of, the RODECaster Pros, it has a lot of processing power. So it's able to really compress the audio, which is where you get that thick podcast sound. If somebody starts laughing, it's automatically going to compress that signal so it doesn't peak and doesn't have that staticky sound. And then it's also going to raise the low end so that you can really hear, the fullness of somebody's voice. In fact, you'll probably tell the difference between the audio that we've been recording in this course in my office, because it's very thick, it's very round, and then the audio coming from this little DJI, although it's good and usable, it takes a lot more post-processing to get that same thickness out of it, and you still won't have the same effect. So yeah, if you want to go big, and if you're a business owner especially, this is just flat out worth it, because you're going to be making money with it. You'll make the money back. They're not super cheap, but you can get them secondhand like I did, and you won't pay as much. Just make sure you're getting a good unit. But yeah, that's the audio capturing. And then for cables, okay, video professionals are going to know, but for all those other, this is an XLR cable. It's just a standard cable that would be hooked into a mic at your church or karaoke. Nothing new, very old design of cable, but it plugs straight into your mics. Now, if you're using something like these, this is a Comica VM30. This does not take XLR cable. It takes a little 1/8-inch cable or wireless transmitter into, say, one of your capturing devices. But for the most part, for podcast, if you're doing it right, you're going to be using an XLR cable. So you're going to need however many of those that you'll need for your recordings. But also, I would have a few backups because cables are not infinite. They do short out eventually. And so I have probably 20 of them. The 4 that I use consistently are really high quality. I keep them wrapped, right. They're trained cables, if you will. And so they haven't shorted out, but I always have a ton of backups just in case. And so, yeah, you're gonna want your cables. You're also gonna wanna make sure, here's headphones. So we're talking about supporting gear now. We went through cameras, stability on cameras, okay. We talked about audio recording devices. We talked about mics. You're gonna need some headphones, okay. Zoom sold a set of 3 mics and 3 headphones, so that's where these came from. But I actually don't use these a lot. These are more for my guests and for my clients. They're nice headphones, and you're gonna have to make sure that you can get a monitoring cable. You gotta plug these headphones into your audio system. So just something to keep in mind. Again, if you're one of those people who have never done this and you're gonna order a bunch of stuff, you're gonna make another order. It's just the way life is. Like, you're gonna get your stuff in, start using it, and realize that something's not long enough, some cable's wrong. It's just trial and error. But I wanna give you my real world experience of kind of like what I've used in the past, what I've come to use, things I've learned. Maybe I can save you a little bit of time. And somewhere in this course, probably in this module, I will list out all the equipment I'm using. So if you do wanna go check it out, and I'll have some links, if you do wanna go check out any of this equipment and maybe get some ideas, and if there is something here that you are interested in, you can pick that up. And full disclosure, it's affiliate links, so I will get a little bit of kickback from there. So if you want to support me further, you can buy it with the link and I'll get a little bit of money. It's not a lot, but hey, it feeds the kids. So moving on from that, there's all this like supporting gear that you're not thinking about. We've talked about the tripods, but there's also mic stands. I have links to mic stands in the description, so you can check out those links. But mic stands, it depends on what you're doing and where you're going to be doing it. In setup 2, with the podcast setup we talked about, you might want the clip-on boom arms, like the one that you've seen in this course. or the one you've seen in a lot of podcasts where they're at a table. Those are really good because, number one, you can have them in place all the time. They don't take up any floor space, and they work really good on tables because they can swing around and you can articulate them as needed. For the Brew to Awakening podcast, my podcast, me, John, and Savannah use these floor mic stands because we honestly just don't know where we're going to be filming that on a weekly basis. There's so much going on in this warehouse that we might be filming in my office. This week we'll be filming in this big room. Sometimes we're filming in the roastery room where they roast coffee. So, you know, it just makes sense to have these because we can move them around and articulate them that way. But you'll definitely need some stands for your mic. That being said, though, I have seen some podcasts in recent months / years, I guess you could say, that are using them in another way. And I'm thinking about doing that this week, is people will just hold the mic. And that's totally a viable option. Now, you are going to be subjugated to a little bit of mic noise if you bump it, say. But yeah, that could work. And the other thing to note about these mics, we have a lot of sandbags sitting around here, like photography and video sandbags. You might want to invest in a few of those. They'll come empty, obviously, but you will just go to your local Lowe's or Home Depot or even Walmart and buy the cheapest sand they got, some play sand, like the stuff they put in a sandbox. But yeah, sandbags are great because clients are they're not used to being around this stuff, and you don't want anybody to get hurt either. So when people are walking around, you know, you will want some sandbags on your mic stands, on your light stands, and anything else like that. So sandbags are just good to have around. Video professionals out there who are already, you know, doing video, they'll know about sandbags. But if you don't, they're super cheap and they could save your equipment or, you know, someone from being injured. So yeah, I think that's it on the equipment. Now, the only thing we didn't touch on was lighting. Lighting is one of those things that, you know, you can go as cheap or as expensive as you really want to. For me, because we are a video production company, let me just grab this light here for you. We use these small rig lights. Now, they're big lights. They're not super cheap. They're pretty expensive. This is the 450D, but these lights allow me to add different modifiers to the front. So, for example, right up there, and I'll put a shot on screen, I have a honeycomb diffuser on that, which is casting a light on my whole set here. But I can use these lights for a number of different purposes. We also have a lot of LED panels. If you're, say, a realtor or a doctor and you guys are building a little podcast studio, LED panels are probably going to be your best bet. Number one, they're cheap. They're super lightweight. In fact, well, I thought I had one out here, but I don't. But they're super lightweight, and I have one way up there hoisted up on the ceiling. And they're not going to take up a lot of space. If one falls over and breaks, it's going to cost you about 50 bucks. If this falls over and breaks, it's going to cost about $1,000. So because I already have them, and we use them on documentaries and interviews and things, it makes sense to use it, and we do. And we do use the LED panels. Like in this course, I've been using an LED panel in my office, and it works really good. The main thing is just getting good light on faces. We're not trying, I mean, you can, like, don't get me wrong. Like, guys, if you are out there to make a cinematic podcast, please do it. But this is more about the process, kind of a 101, if you will, and getting just light on someone's face is going to be better than nothing. Something that I use for a lot of podcasts where I don't need to or want to set up multiple lights for each person, or maybe we don't have the time, is something called a China ball. So it's basically this big diffusion ball that I can put on the end of that, and I can just cast a big, beautiful, glowing light throughout the room. And that works for a lot of the use cases for me. But LED panels work just as good. Just make sure you're getting light on each subject and use the eye test, guys. Look at your camera monitor. Make sure you like what you're seeing. If you like what you're seeing and it looks good to you, that's it. What is king? Is cameras king? No, is the cinematic quality king? Content is king. A very close second is audio. Like, you got to be able to hear the content, and then being able to see the content is going to open you up to a whole new audience. But starting out, content's king. Focus more of your energy on the content. We just wanted to do this equipment side of things to give you just a 101. And as you can see on the images I'm putting on screen now, we have podcasts, like my podcast is very like shoot from the hip. We don't really care. You'll even see a camera in frame. We're just making it for the content. And then we have somebody like Ashley Cole's podcast, who we did spend a lot of time setting up the lighting and setting up the look, and it's just beautiful. That one is, I would call that one slightly cinematic, right? And then we have the Banks podcast that had to be consistent. So not only were we setting up everything to look the best it could be, but we're actually copying down all of our settings, all of our placements of tripods, so that every episode throughout the year virtually looks the same. You just kind of have to feel out what you're going for. If you're making it for yourself, it's a lot easier because you can just set it up and know what you're going for, and you're also the boss, so you can be as critical or as forgiving as you want to be. If you're setting it up for clients, you are going to have that conversation and make those decisions as you go. You can get as cinematic and as fancy and as 8K as you want, or you can be as lo-fi, as carefree as you want to be. That is up to you. But that is the gist of all the equipment that we use and just what it really takes to make a podcast. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments of the course or send us a message. We'd be happy to address those.